Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Zoning meeting of June 29th to order. Would everyone please, or do you want to do, yeah, I see you've mixed me up again.
Sorry, we'll do
Roll call.
roll call first.
All right, I see that. We'll do roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Sturdivant? Absent. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, here.
Ms. Jeske? Mr. Bolander?
Here.
And Mr. Justice.
All right, thank you. Would everyone please rise for the pledge? All right, let's see. Make sure all of our board members have your mics on. Yeah, sure can. Can you hear me now? Okay. Let's see. Next on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes of last month. Has the board had an opportunity to look over these? Do we have any comments or corrections? Oh, you know what? I just did it out of order again. I tell you what, can I go ahead and finish this one?
Sure.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the May 25th meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. They switched this up on me. Do we have any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see here. We have one case for old business and two new business cases tonight. The first case up on old business is the SEC Broadway Street and Ohio Street Shell gas station and retail office space. Adam, could you send us through that presentation, please?
Sure. All right, so for this particular case, if you recall, this was continued from the last meeting. This has to do with the proposed Shell gas station and retail or office suites at the southeast corner of Broadway and Ohio. And this is a special exception for the gas station component of it that's required under the zoning ordinance. So I won't get into too many details on this in the interest of time as we went over a lot of that, but I will certainly bring everybody up to speed on what happened since then, since the last meeting. At the May 25th BZA meeting, the reason this board wanted to continue the case to this month was to allow time for the applicant to meet with the neighbors regarding the project. And on June 22nd, a neighborhood meeting occurred here at Town Hall. There were 13 attendees, including the applicant's attorney, commercial real estate broker, and myself. And the discussion items included the 4 suites would be rented out to other uses like a CPA, other potential office or small retail uses. The applicant is not looking to do a traffic study. They did show some renderings, which I have here, and I'll provide those momentarily. They stated that the gas station hours would be from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And they're amenable to putting a privacy fence along the east portion of the lot. Some of the comments that we heard from the neighbors varied. Some had said that traffic is not a big problem in the area. Others said that visibility looking east at that intersection is a problem. Some folks discussed lighting concerns, pedestrian connectivity. Some were concerned with the use in general, and they're not convinced that it's the best use for the property. And others expressed concern about potential noise. So here were the renderings that they had provided. Certainly, you're not asked to approve the renderings here tonight. It's just for informational purposes. And also, I believe the convenience store would be branded as a Shell instead of BP as shown in this example. But at least it'll give you a little bit of a feel for what the facility would look like and in terms of the uses overall. There are a few other gas stations around central Indiana that do have gas station pumps and some other uses in a plaza or a store like this, so to speak. So while I'd say it's somewhat uncommon to have these mixes of uses, it's not unheard of. We can certainly refer back to any of these exhibits as may be necessary. Just to refresh your memory, here is what the site plan in concept could look like. So my recommendation after meeting with the neighbors and trying to come up with a compromise to address some of their concerns would be to approve the request with 3 conditions. The third condition, in speaking with the applicant's attorney, we'd like to change the language a little bit, and I'll explain momentarily. But the first condition, if you're inclined, would be that the gas station must open no earlier than 5 a.m. and must close no later than 11 p.m. The second one is that an 8-foot tall opaque fence or wall must be provided along the parcel of 828.5 East Ohio Street if a residential structure exists on that parcel. The reason, just got to log in one thing here. The reason I put that language that way is in the event that the property is purchased by either this project or an adjacent project in the future and the house is gone, there obviously wouldn't be a need for that requirement. And then the third condition is that it has to do with lighting on the property. And the way that I would like it to read is lighting on the property underneath the gas canopy must not exceed 12.5 foot candles, period. So that language is based on some best practices in some other communities. Fortville does not have at this time any sort of light intensity requirements. And so basically no more than 12.5 foot candles under the canopy. If you're inclined to approve that recommendation, would ensure that the intensity of that light, even though it'll obviously all be fully pointed downward, the brightness and intensity would not be obtrusive. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. The applicant's attorney is here as well, and possibly the applicant as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. So we have a specific order in which we run our meetings. So there will be time in the agenda if there is the applicant here, or for audience participation if there's anything that they want to add or ask. So first, I'm going to ask the board, do we have any questions with this new information to Adam? And I guess I'm going to start. I do have one. So when you have suggested one of the first conditions are the hours of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., is that just for the gas station, or is that for any of the other businesses that might occupy the other spaces?
Well, the way it's written is just for the gas station. Certainly, if you wanted to adjust that, we could.
Okay. All right. All right.
So I do have.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Adam, at the last meeting, I asked the petition's attorney about the 4 suites. He said it was going to be used for the employees at the gas station. Has that changed now? So it's going to be used as rental space?
Yes,
Which
yes,
makes it-
as we had figured might be the case based on the sizes.
Yeah.
My understanding is the attorney spoke with the client and got more clarification on exactly what the plan was. So what we present to you tonight is the most accurate information as we understand it.
And these businesses that might go into these rental units, they would have to be zoned for CC?
Correct.
Okay, or have to go back through a whole BZA approval?
If there's a particular use that they'd want to do that requires a special exception, correct?
Okay,
And tonight, we're just. The building can be built no matter what. It's the gas pumps, correct?
That's correct. That's the focus of your.
the focus is
your
the
review
gas,
here tonight is
the gas station and the gas pumps.
right. Really whether or not and the convenience store is also allowed by right.
Okay,
Without your approval one way or the other, but it's the gas pumps basically
okay,
as to whether or not you feel that's appropriate for this area.
okay. Does anybody else here on the board have any questions for Adam? Okay, we have a time in the agenda then for the petitioner to come up and add any more information. Please stay and state your name and how you represent this case, please. What- Oh, okay, just go ahead then. Yeah.
We also have our landscape here as well. So currently the petitioner here is purchasing the property, the community as a six pumps for office suite attached to it and a convenience store. I understand that it's a convenience store. Again, the use of the office space and the for our permitted uses exceed just the six cap. Or not, which we are seeking a special exception. The property, as shown on the site, provides access to Broadway Street and Broadway. So the gas station provides 6 pumps to be covered by PMP. That's demonstrated on the site plan. The pumps will front Ohio Street, the off-street parking. They'll be located in pumps, convenience store, and office space. The convenience store will be roughly 3,500 square feet and will have the attached 4 office suites. There are planned to be 10 employees working at the convenience store gas station 7 days a week from 5 to 11 p.m. And they will locate the south side of the property. From the meeting we had since the last hearing, in regarding the questions about the office space, the intent is there's no tenants lined up right now. The idea is that this construction and development supports the activity that tenants and those looking to office will see it. Place to come. So we believe that again, intended uses would be uses that have a low impact on traffic. So we're not trying to, parking has to accommodate them. We're not going to add a lot of new traffic in the area. We understand the traffic is a concern, so we are intending to have low traffic tenants there. BZA is likely accommodating office space that will be built there. So we believe it could be a good location, and there will be good opportunity in real estate for those types of tenants. That not sure if there's a lot of inventory elsewhere in the area, so the intent is to develop this quickly, and once that goes up, hopefully get tenants pretty quickly. Feels will be the case. With respect to the commitments that Adam mentioned, petitioner is agreeable to all of them. The 8-foot opaque fence on the east side is agreeable. The hours of operation are agreeable, and the lighting initially, what was shown in the staff comments, recommended a 2.5-foot candle. we were discussing these today is when we were, so we were trying to get our lighting guy, look at, give us an opinion if we thought it was adequate. Our initial feedback was that it was not sufficient to provide proper lighting, and that standard lighting is between 28 and 30-foot candles underneath the canopy. Clearly, the better lit that the property is, add more safety to those who are using it. So that's the idea of making it well lit, safety for the consumer, safety for the employees to be working there. Adam and staff came back when we asked the board, they wouldn't be agreeable with 12.5. That's clearly better, and will be final for lighting. We still haven't heard back from our lighting guys, so we are agreeable, officially agreeable with 12.5, as long as there is a capability to come back and amend that if it's necessary, to provide additional lighting. And Adam's suggestion is that 12.5 will be the commitment. If we would deem that's insufficient, what we would have to do is we would have to come back in front of you and show why that is insufficient, and they would look for lighting. So that is perfectly acceptable to us. And if the meeting we had in the interim with the neighbors, there were nearby property owners who were concerned with lighting pollution. So that's not the intent at all, but we understand that a private lit property could be have a negative effect. So we are agreeable with 12.5 with the option to increase it if you down the road. The fourth commitment that I am agreeable to as well, which was not contained in staff report, is that there is commitment to install either sidewalk or a path around the corner of the property along both street fronts. From our last meeting, Adam mentioned that there is a plan down the road to install maybe a pathway or sidewalks along the streets. I know that that's important. A lot of people use it, they cut through it. So that's completely acceptable, and it will help with walkability in the area. And so there's a commitment there. I don't think the plan would be to install it immediately. It would depend on when it's determined it would be needed and when reconciliation goes. So that would be so regarding the criteria for the board approving a special exception request, the first criteria is that the special exception shall be listed in section 15 during events. That's clearly the case here. A gas station is a special exception for a CC zoning district. Also worth noting is that a gas station is not a permitted use outright in any zoning district, so it's only a special exception for them. So it's going to need approval regardless of what is planned to be installed. So I thought that was just worth pointing out, but this is a special exception. The special exception can also be served with gas facilities here at the location of the property. There's no problem with facilities. It'll be properly serviced with them. And the exception does not involve any element or cause of condition that may be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to other property or persons. That is clearly the case here. The development will comply with Article 6 of the zoning ordinance. There's no variances needed or anticipated at this time. The petitioner is also going to ensure the safe operations by proper employees, adhering to all necessary safety requirements for storage and use of hazardous materials, maintaining and cleaning the ground, storage tanks and dispense points will be monitored, and complying with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management items, rules and compliance regulations related to safety operating gas stations. So IDEM is another kind of check and balance to oversee operating gas stations. So clearly, if you're not following their protocol, then they will not allow you to operate. So that is the intent is to really apply the safety The gas station will be stored in advanced state to the harmonious relationship to the nearby area. As shown on the renderings that Adam showed, the intent is to build a nice quality, very nice looking building. Again, because it's with the holding tenants who will be offering services to the community and nearby property owners, business owners, really want business nice that or the consumers would want to come to. So we believe this is going to be a nice back corner. And again, by making this activity happen, hoping that other development will follow through this as well. The gas station will produce a total visual impression environment, which is environment of the neighborhood. Here, the gas station will provide nearby residents fast price, giving communication for gas, convenience store services, as well as the tenant services who will be there. The use is consistent with the commercial community zoning district purpose, given the location that's compatible with the adjacent industrial park that we are in right here. The location is more related. The special section will be organized vehicle access and parking to minimize traffic congestion in the neighborhood. Knowing that this was a concern from our last meeting, we met, traffic wasn't the main topic or talking point of it. I mean, the understanding from my understanding is that any development at that corner is going to increase traffic. That's just going to happen development from a vacant lot to something with anything on it. We have designed the site plan so that the access will be as far away from the intersection as possible. I still understand the concern of traffic in that area. The understanding though is that NDOT change that this time and not get them to change. Clearly, NDOT reviewed the area and determined that there are any appropriate changes that need to be put in place. The petition would have to apply. So sounds like there is a possible need for that, especially if there's further development in the future. Personally, I don't know what that takes to NDOT to review that, but if there's a right out access only on one of the roads, you know, that is something that would be done. There'd be traffic calming measures that would be reflected on the property that would be done as well. Like for controlling the traffic concerns, there's not much that could be done based on my understanding of what is leading to a lot of not a lot of the activity. I don't know, but the petitioner is hoping that, I mean, they're not intending to create any negative impact here, enough to impact their business, the neighborhood, and their the perception of them in the community. So there's no impact here because of the disturbance, and only to help create good traffic flow as much as they can. And the special exception, the gas station will also preserve the zoning, given the easy community commercial zoning district is intended to provide a location for a variety of small and mid-sized businesses and serve a wide area. And here again, we're just looking at the gas station, sort of a special exception in the district. The residential development that has been developed north of the property added a lot of houses to say the least. Currently, the 3 gas stations in the downtown area incur all that traffic from the residences who are needing to get gas. Were there. I know we have CVS as well, but one-stop shop is more convenient for gas station purposes. So the gas station here north of the downtown area does provide a closer location to the current development that's happening, as well as development as well. That will lessen traffic impact downtown, which I think will help preserve those. I know there's major construction going on with roads right now, so help limit traffic going from the gas stations. I think that would help with getting. I think that'd be a valuable resource to have for a gas station close to the area. Not only the location, but adding more competition does have value as well. The petitioner owns other gas stations, well known for how competition affects other businesses. You can lower gas prices, sell convenience price cheaper, so that helps maintain some sort of stability that benefits consumers while not just adding up prices, which complete a problem. So competition of another gas station is not a bad thing by any means. And with that said, would you like to add anything at this time? Nothing further from Ravi. So again, with the renderings that were proposed, again, the idea is to build a nice building here. Like I said, we do have a landscaping here as well. There aren't any landscaping design yet. That comes afterwards. Right. And build a lot of review for the plans. But the idea is knowing where we are in the meeting with neighbors. The idea is kind of negative impact on them. So more than willing to work on anything that can be done to let them be the light pollution, solutions to discuss as well. Clearly, they can want to a gas station. Really, there are along with that. The gas pumps, though, aren't serving semi trucks, so vehicle access. So there's a lesson from there. So there will be noise. Can't say there won't be. They don't really. So with that, Commissioner, with respect to your special section, with respect to updating and
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions at this time for him?
Adam, I believe our last meeting, did we ask for a NDOT study of these guys?
No, we didn't.
We didn't.
And it's atypical to require a traffic study for a project of this size. In terms of traffic, we're definitely well aware of especially the site visibility issues when you're on Ohio Street and you're looking out towards Broadway. I mean, we experience it here at Town Hall as well. But frankly, we would defer to NDOT and their expertise. Specifically their traffic reviewers and engineers to see if there are any changes that should be made at that intersection. There's obviously a possibility that no change would be warranted based on the type of use, but again, my recommendation is to defer that to NDOT since it's their facility.
All right, anybody else here on the board have a question for either the petitioner or for Adam? Okay, all right, if you'll just have a seat, don't get too far because I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions for you. So now we have the portion in the agenda for public response, and this is for or against comments or concerns. We allot about a 10 or 15-minute time frame for this. So if you've already heard a comment or a question, just pass and let the next person come up. Doesn't mean that hearing it twice doesn't make it any more important. We've already heard it once and we'll get an answer or get that addressed from the petitioner or from Adam. So the way we typically run this is I'll just have you raise your hand and have you come up to the mic. You'll say and spell your name and your address, and then just speak on whatever your comment or concern is. So do we have anybody that is interested in speaking on this case? All right, you in the back, if you'll come up to the mic. Again, say and spell your name and your address, please.
Randy Escue. I'm a homeowner in Colonial Village, as well as several of my relatives back there. They're also homeowners. And I appreciate the 8-foot fence for my rentals. Appreciate that. But unfortunately, I can't come to grips with the gas station in that on Broadway and on a county road. And honestly, it's just too close to a residential development like Colonial Village, in my humble opinion. And without getting into, traffic and all that, I just generally think a gas station is just not the best use. I'm probably the generally that Adam spoke of. So, I'm not an expert, but, Colonial Villages have, 75, 80 homes in it. And some are directly across the street, which is the lighting concern. My couple of rentals is directly next door. So anyway, I just wanted to ask the board to be very cautious about this exception. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you for your concern. All right, is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on this? All right, come on up, please. Again, say and spell your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Tina Vandenbark. Last name is Vandenbark. And I'm the listing agent on the property. I lived here for 41 years before moving. And before I moved and as a little girl, there was a restaurant on that corner. There was a gas station across the street. Yes, times have changed immensely for Fortville and they continue to improve the surroundings. I understand that the traffic flow is heavier. That gas station is not going to bring more traffic. The traffic's still going to go through Fortville, whether it's here or whether it's not. The property has been for sale for quite some time. And my understanding is from the Fortville residents that I've spoken with and some of the neighbors that live on 1050 North, I was raised in Colonial Village and I used to live at the end of 1050 North. And they have managed to put in 2 huge neighborhoods in both those areas, which to me would be a huge concern. I don't foresee the gas station being an issue. It also is open to tenant space, which Fortville rents out really quick these days. Safety has always been a concern of mine my whole life. And if I would have thought for 1 minute when we presented the offer to the owner that safety was an issue, it would have been dead in the water. The owner is very concerned with what goes in on that corner. They've owned it for more years than I can even tell you. But I just ask that with the growth of Fortville, with the neighborhoods that are surrounding it, just to take into consideration the benefits that might have for Fortville, having something on this end of town versus on the other. I might also add, when I was growing up, there was 5 gas stations in Fortville, and it was a much smaller community at that time. I don't see how having a convenient food store or a gas station would hinder anyone in the town. But again, that's and for myself, if they don't sell it.
All right. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else? Okay, let's see here. The 2 comments that we had were more comments rather than questions, so I'm not sure that we need to bring the petitioner back up at this point. Do we have any government officials in the audience that would like to make a comment for or against comments or concerns? Okay, I don't see anyone. So let's go back to the board here. Now that we've heard everything, are there any other clarification questions that we need for Adam or the petitioner before we put this to a motion? Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were going to make a comment there. All right. Well, then we are at the stage here that I am looking for a board member who is ready to make a motion to approve with the 3 conditions that were listed from Adam, though there was a 4th about the path or the sidewalk on both sides of the street. I'm not sure if we should put that in there or if that is an NDOT town thing.
Yeah, really quickly on that point. My understanding, and I have to double check the ordinance, but is that would be required anyway.
Okay.
Based on the thoroughfare plan and probably the commercial design standards, but.
So we don't necessarily need to put that in as a condition because it's going to be an automatic
believe
if
so.
this should be approved.
Correct.
Okay.
So the only, again, if you're inclined, would be that minor tweak to number 3 about lighting on the property not exceeding 12.5 foot candles under the canopy.
Yes.
So.
Okay. All right. So then I am looking for a board member to make a motion to approve with the 3 conditions or deny this case that's before us.
I'll go and move to approve it with the conditions by the staff.
All right. Open up for any discussions from the board. All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Let's go for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Any abstain? No. Obviously, there's a few here that aren't here. So that is a 3-1 vote. Motion passes. All right, there's paperwork in front of you on this. So will our board members take a moment here to fill these out, and then we'll go on to the next case. I hope I'm doing the right one.
Yeah, if there's a way that we can.
Yeah.
All right, if board members, if when you're finished, just oh, I only need one of these. Oh, I see. This is both of you guys. Okay. All right, and I'll just. All right, moving along with our agenda tonight. The second case up is a new business. It is variance 07-2023 at 533 Swan Drive. And this is for a metal pole barn / garage. Adam, would you please present the case for us?
Sure. All right, so for this particular case, again, as you mentioned in the opening, it is for a variance, 533 Swan Drive. It's in the Old Bridge subdivision. The owner petitioner is Jacob Burgess. I just need to refresh something on our computer. Use of the property is single family residential, and the zoning on the property is residential 2.5. The request is as follows. Jacob Burgess would like to construct a 3,200 square foot metal pole barn or garage as an accessory structure in the side yard of his property. And in order to do so as desired, he is seeking a variety of variances from the zoning ordinance. A little bit of background on this particular case. A permit for the structure was issued by the town in June 2022. And framing construction began. Some neighbors complained to the town council. A stop work order was issued because it was discovered that the height of the peak of the roof was about 5 feet higher than the principal structure. And the builder did not apparently comply with restrictive covenants as attested to on the application. And so the permit was subsequently revoked. And in January 2023, the town council adopted amendments to the zoning ordinance, adding additional regulations on metal buildings and added cross-referencing in the ordinance as the standards were previously spread out across multiple sections of the code. The structure remains partially constructed today. Some neighbors complained about the unsightly nature of the partially constructed building to town council. And in April 2023, the town requested that the applicant resubmit for a building permit to comply with the zoning ordinance, remove the structure, or seek a variance from the BZA. And Mr. Burgess is here tonight seeking the variance. In terms of the property, you can see that it involves 2 platted lots that were combined through the county assessor's office. And in this oblique aerial that was taken in March of this year, you can see the framed building as it stands. If we take a look at a ground photo, you can see the building out there. This was taken last summer. Here was the plot plan that was originally submitted to the town. And then here are the building elevations that were submitted to the town. It would be a gray, a very dark gray, and a red mix. All right, so I just wanted to note that the town does not enforce private restrictive neighborhood covenants. Other municipalities are the same way. And that's because it is a private agreement between the property owner and the neighbors. Therefore, to the extent this request may not conform to the private covenants, this is not in the purview of the BZA. But the variance is requested from this Fortville zoning ordinance as last revised in January of this year would be as follows. Pole barn and metal building is prohibited currently in residential 2.5 zoning. Accessory structures shall be no larger than 50% of the area of the primary structure. And this proposed structure is 3,200 square feet, whereas the house is about 2,300 square feet. 9-inch roof overhangs are required. 1x4 window trim is required. Minimum 6 to 12 roof pitch required. Garage door windows required. The height of an accessory structure cannot exceed the height of a principal structure. And lastly, all accessory structures shall be placed a minimum of 15 feet behind the front plane of the primary structure. In terms of remonstrance to the variances, first, all public hearing notice requirements have been met. That included sign posting, newspaper publication, and a mailing. And due to interest in the case from residents in the Old Bridge neighborhood, town staff defined all property owners in the neighborhood as, quote, interested parties. So a public hearing notice was mailed to all neighbors, all owners, as a courtesy above and beyond the typical mailing requirement. Simply put, some neighbors object to this variance on the basis that they feel it is too large, an unsightly metal building, and inconsistent with the aesthetic of the neighborhood, and they feel it will lower their property values. In terms of the decision criteria for the variance per the zoning ordinance, again, is based on Indiana code. There are 3 criteria that you are to look at. The first one is general welfare, that if you were, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The second one is adjacent property, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And then lastly, practical difficulty, that the strict application of the terms of the chapter of the zoning ordinance will result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. So for this particular case, given the history on it, I don't have any opinions one way or the other. I will defer exclusively to the board on it. I will say that I do think, though, as with any sort of case that involves development, I would hope that there could be some sort of compromise where the owner gives a bit, the neighbors give a bit, and everybody can live in harmony. But with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Okay, let's see here. My guess is most of you are here for this case, so let me make sure I get this all in order. Does the board have any questions from Adam's presentation?
So you have no recommendations on this?
I don't, other than I would hope
Or the town
that
does.
some sort of compromise could be reached.
So why was the initial building permit issued to begin with?
Because at the time that we did the review, we felt that it met all of the requirements pre-January 2023. And so we did not, on the application at the time, ask for what the height of the principal structure was in relation to the accessory structure. So we didn't have that information readily available at the time. But again, based on the other code requirements in place or lack thereof at the time, we believe that it met the requirements. However, after further review, the height was an issue. And then secondly, the application, the builder that signed it, they attest that the standard language that's been on there for a long time says that they would comply with they build it to the zoning ordinance and they would comply with any restrictive covenants. And we felt that it did not meet either of those criteria, which was our basis for revoking the permit.
Go ahead.
So how long has this structure been like it is now?
So it's sat that way since about August 2022.
Almost a year.
Correct.
It started before the town council adopted the new codes.
Yes.
It did.
All right, I've got several questions. Of the list of ordinances that we now have in place, and you listed them off. One was no pole barn in R 2.5 zoning. That was not on there at the beginning when it was first granted, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, I can summarize for you here.
Were any of those that you
Yeah.
listed on there?
That the height of the accessory structure cannot exceed the height of the principal structure.
That was already on
That
there.
was already on the books and it was frankly buried in a different section of the code under height as opposed to being under accessory structures.
Okay,
So that was an item that we addressed as part of the amendments.
right.
That cross-referencing.
What about overhang?
No, I don't believe any of that.
Verbiage was not there.
Had to do with accessory buildings at the time in this part of town. There were some regulations in the Old Town area dealing with accessory structures, but not outside of the Old Town area and not in an area that was covered by a homeowners association in which there were regulations maybe as part of a planned unit development.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to determine is of this list that you gave us, how many off of this list, whether it's the overhang, the window trim, the roof pitch, was already in our ordinances when it was applied for?
Only one,
Only one. Even roof pitch was not?
not, no, it would
Okay.
not apply in that area of town on his property
Okay.
at that time. The only one would be height of accessory structure cannot exceed the height of the principal structure.
You said that was in a different
It
section.
was in a different section.
What about it had to be 15 foot behind the face of the primary structure?
No, that's new.
That was new as well. Okay, I realize we're dealing with two components. One is obviously this body of Board of Zoning. The HOA, the homeowners association.
So, yeah, first I just want to mention the biggest concern that we've heard from a number of residents, I'm sure some will attest to, is the overall size of it. And to be very clear,
Correct.
at the time the permit was applied for, there was no restriction on maximum size as long as it complied with the setbacks. So,
Which it does.
which it does.
Which it
correct.
does. Okay.
Accessory structure setbacks, you only need to be 5 feet from a side or rear property line. So to answer your question about an HOA, so this neighborhood does not have an HOA.
Oh, it does not.
No, but they do have covenants on their plat. from when the neighborhood was first built in the 70s, 80s. And we did make the applicant and the builder aware that, as is customary, to say, hey, just so you know, there are covenants here that you need to follow, and be aware of that. But in terms of our ability to enforce those, to prohibit a permit, is not something that we do.
Okay. So it's like two different entities, not stepping on each other's toes here. So on the covenants. Okay. So no matter when they were done, they're still legal and binding at this point, or do we even know, or does that have any bearing for us?
I don't believe it has any bearing, and maybe Alex can confirm that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's at this point the extent of my questions. Do we have any others here for Alex or Adam?
So I think what Amanda's trying to, in my head here, wrapping myself around this whole deal here is, as far as we're concerned, since he started back in before the new town council adopted this stuff, where do we like? I mean, are we supposed to be voting on what today's rules are, or back when he started?
Today's rules. So if you were to grant the variance, it would be on all the rules that are in place today. And that's because that permit was revoked. And so also I should add that I believe we gave the applicant the opportunity to resubmit prior to that point to try to come into compliance with the height issue. And it didn't happen, I'm sure, for a variety of reasons. But so in the town's eyes, permit was revoked and you have to start fresh. And he submitted it after January 2023 now, and would be subject to those new rules.
What date was the stop work order? When did that
It was
happen?
early August 2022.
So that's when his permit was revoked.
Correct.
How far along was the building at that point?
It has.
The way it stands now?
Yeah, it was about this far, which is, I believe, what it remains as today.
Okay, I'm just going to keep wading through this because. All right, let's go with the petitioner next. This is not an easy one, I'll tell you.
Thank you for coming to Jake's barn party or barn raising event. Traditionally, it's a celebration and a community event, but today we're here. Look out, and I want to see a lot of my neighbors, along with some property right advocates. So I appreciate everybody being here. I'll just kind of give my little rundown of what I've got written down that kind of put more of a clarity of what's going on. So hello, and thank you for allowing me to be here before you and detail my experience with building this structure on my property. My name is Jacob Burgess, 533 Swan Drive. I'm a lifelong member of this community. My parents bought a house here in 72. My grandparents a couple years before. I'm a founding member of the Fortville Boys and Girls Club. I was 2003 member of the year, representing this community in a statewide competition. I'm a business owner in this community. Employ 58 people, 35 whom now live in this community, prior that did not. On December 14th, 2021, I reached out to Blitz Builders looking for advice on how to build a structure on my property within Old Bridge, knowing that we don't have an HOA and that I do restaurants and not construction. He reached out to the planning and building director and was given a few items we'd need to do prior for him signing off on the application. One was combining my lots to allow for enough real estate to conform to the size of my house and structure. We submitted stamped and engineered drawings that gave the height with those drawings and that were stamped and paid the dues associated with filing for the permit. Once complete, the permit was paid for, and I'm Zach Wachowski issued a permit to proceed. John Ross of Blitz Builders and the town's planning and building director were in contact regarding what would need to be done throughout the process. We had 811 out and started the construction. We had our post inspected by the county. We were passed on those. The structure was being built. No one from the town or my neighborhood came by with any issues. 2 working days before completion, I was given a stop work order from the town. I'm sure you've all been through Old Bridge and have looked into this issue. I'm on the far back part of the neighborhood, over the bridge. Over the bridge consists of 28% of the neighborhood. The location of my house is next to a dead end with 2 cul-de-sacs. So here's some math I might put in perspective. The over the bridge, which is not accessible or used often by the public, unless you're coming to visit someone who lives there, the lots on that side of my bridge make up 28% of the neighborhood. 6 or 7 owners within my side of the neighborhood make up 38% or a quarter, make up 38% of that part of it, a quarter of those. So in the grand scheme of things, less than 10% of the whole neighborhood had been having some sorts of questions or issues on this. Of my direct neighbors, 3 have been very vocal in addressing this. Old Bridge is the most seclusive neighborhood in town, and my area is even more secluded. This is not an area that has high traffic. This is not a misrepresentation of Fortville, and the property rights of those who move in here are attracted to live here. This will not financially affect anyone except myself. Now, there are a few layers to this, but the one I'm in front of you today is to ask for a variance for the height of my structure and the others. The height of my structure is 6 feet taller than my residence. That being said, there's a handful of structures in town that also do not adhere to these guidelines. One being less than 600 feet from my house and in Old Bridge. Another one is less than a quarter mile as the crow flies from my house. And if you look out the front door of this building and look east, there's another structure that does not conform next to Lincoln Square. All these are zoned in similarity to my property and have way more traffic. Everything I've done in this town has been to enhance the visibility. I've added one of the most attractive hardscape lawns in town, and this is going to be no different with hardscaping, landscaping, and nice lighting. I know that some of the complaints for that would be devalue the property as my neighbors, but I think it's all subjective. This structure was built in necessity. My basement and garage are full. I have storage unit I paid monthly fee on this would offset. This was an investment for me. An investment for me and anyone looking to move to Fortville with the need to have a structure with this sort of space. And now the items that no longer fit in my garage and basement are overflowing onto my driveway, and it adds the unsightliness that I was trying to avoid. Now, I spent $70,000 on an incomplete building. No one wants to help me out. I've got sleepless nights. My mental health's been affected by this problem we have in town. I love this place and, I invest in this town. Product has hurt me financially as well. I went through the proper outlets I was advised to go through, and now I'm left sitting here holding the bag, coming to you to plead my case. Of all the variance hearings this year, multiple have been similar to my issue. The most recent being built, again, 400 yards from my property on Garden Street, has much more visibility, being on a traffic road with the visibility from 67, Dairy Queen, and the liquor store. The other item on the stop work order refers to restrictive covenants not adhered to, which were referenced, but nowhere in the Fortville zoning ordinance adopted, what I found online of January 6, 2020. I'll address this, but I don't believe it's in reference to the stop work order for my variance. Once it's turned into a personal battle, I educated myself on everything involved in this. I did an audit, a quick audit, but still an audit. There are 11 residents in Old Bridge that have not adhered to the covenants within Old Bridge. One is an accessory structure that is all vinyl, taller than the residents, and lies in one of the most visible corners of the whole neighborhood. What it comes down to is less than 10% of the whole neighborhood is louder than the 90% something, and now I'm involved. I might ask them to demolish their structure. Are we to make every fence that's taller than 36 inches, which is also in the covenants, to be torn down? According to the covenants, this is a battle that we're looking at. And I don't want these others who are mostly on fixed income to be dragged into this, but it feels as if I'm singled out. For the last 30 years, Old Bridge has been, over the last 30 years, Old Bridge has allowed many of these covenants to be forgotten. Both the town council did to me and my project seemed very targeted. They might have seek that, Jim Cooper's building and the other structures in town to be torn down. I don't want to, but if that's what, if I'm not allowed to build what I build, yet they didn't adhere to the one variance that I was hit with, then how are all these other basically structures being able to be built? Still to bypass the ordinance. So that's kind of my little thing that I wrote. And it was basically, that's the history of the structure that I was trying to build. So that's it.
All right. Don't leave yet. Does anybody here on the board have any questions?
And this is Nicholas or Nick. He's going to help me on some questions.
All right, I just have one quick, couple of questions.
Yeah.
For you. The way this current building is designed, what is the roof pitch?
Like I said, I'm a cook. I don't know anything about construction.
Okay, all right. Does that show that on the drawings by any chance,
Yes,
Adam?
it's on the drawing somewhere, I imagine.
I think it's 4 to 12 or 3 to 12.
Probably 412 on a pole barn. Okay, do you know what, I don't know who to ask. Do you know what the overhang is? If it's a
I
9,
don't know.
12, 0, a lot of times there's 0.
I
on
think
pole-
it's over. I'm not sure. It's on the
Okay.
drawings.
Do you intend to put any windows in it?
There are windows.
There are
ready for-
windows. Did you plan on trimming it out with 1x4 trim?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And the way it currently sets, is it even with the face of the house or does it set in
It's-
front?
It sets back of it, I believe.
It sets in back?
Yeah.
Can we tell from,
Yeah, probably not the 15 feet.
not the
that's
15 feet,
required
but it
now.
is set back some?
Right.
Less than 15 feet.
Okay. Okay. Yes, go ahead and say your name and how you represent the case, please.
Couple of comments. Yeah, my name is Nicholas Plopper. Last name is P as in Paul, Lopper. I'm Mr. Burgess's attorney. Have the privilege and honor of helping him out with this very interesting problem. I think there's two points I'd like to speak to that I believe may be of interest to the board. I appreciate Adam's comments about trying to find compromise to this issue. And I think Mr. Burgess is more than willing to engage in that process. That process, as I understand it, if the board's not inclined to give a favorable vote tonight, entitles us to seek immediate meeting with the town planner. I assume it'll be Adam, where we might be able to put our heads together to discuss building a structure that would be more in conformity with not only previous code, but current code as well. And that is something that we intend to do if necessary. The other thing I'd like to speak to is the status of the Old Bridge covenants. I know there were some questions about that. So the covenants are a recorded document, I think from 1972, when the neighborhood was originally developed. There is no homeowners association presently constituted. The recorded covenants that do exist do contemplate an architectural review board. However, because there is no HOA, there is no architectural review board and no ability to engage in that process. So where does that leave the residents of Old Bridge? Is it confers a private right of action on each owner should they choose to take that course of action. Other than that, the timeline of events, I think, was fairly accurately described by Adam. We did get some conflicting messaging from staff on that. There was a notice provided that there were misrepresentations made in the application, which we attribute to the builder, no fault to Mr. Burgess. And then we also received a letter April of this year, which attributed to the stop work order to the height requirement. I'm just now becoming aware of the new ordinances that went into effect in January. So obviously the new ordinances would have a very significant impact on this project. But as Mr. Burgess has stated, he spent over $70,000 on this. It would be a very significant economic waste were he to be ordered to tear this down. That would most certainly end up in litigation, which we would most desperately like to avoid. I think a variance is the most economic path forward that makes the most sense for the town, Mr. Burgess, and the surrounding property owners, given the fact that there are many non-conforming structures, not only in Old Bridge, but surrounding neighborhoods. So with that, very respectfully request your positive vote.
All right, thank you. Just don't, you guys can have a seat, but don't go too far because now I'm sure we'll have additional questions and comments for you.
And also, I did want to mention quickly for the record that in terms of the whole list of variances that they are seeking, is you as a board do not need to grant all of them. You could grant some, all, you have complete flexibility. It's not,
Okay.
it's not a one or all, zero or all situation.
Okay, and do we have do we have those listed out?
Do you have a list of those?
Do you have a list of the individual?
Yes,
Because I
pull that back.
don't think we have that here on our desk. We just have the 3 requirement criteria.
Right. Go back to. Where I do. Share screen.
Okay.
So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8
Okay.
variances that the building as submitted for your review, you would need to authorize for him to construct it that way.
Okay. And like you said, we don't need to do all 8 in totality. We can pick and choose if needed. And this is all based on current code that we have in place, which is the new 2023 one.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Now it's time for public response. So the way this works, like you heard in the last case, we have about a 10 to 15 minute window here, and everyone's comments are important. So if you hear what you were going to say already voiced, doesn't make it any less important to us to hear it again. To save time, try not to be repetitive. All right. All right. We're just going to go row by row because it'll be less confusing. Does anybody here in this first row like to speak? Okay. How about the second row? All right. Please come up, say and spell your last name and your address, please.
My name is Dave Fisher, 545 Swan Drive. My wife and I own the property immediately adjacent to the pole barn. I'd like to remind the board that the original permit has been revoked. We should look at all these conditions that are in force now. And I glanced through them, and I would be willing to go along as long as they reduce the size of the building, bring the building down the height, and, you know, as long as they're 50% less than is existing residence. And the biggest thing that I object to is it's a metal building. Every home in that house is brick. I mean, in that addition is brick or stone. And it's going to stand out with that metal building, metal siding. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb. And it will reduce everybody's property value. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The row behind, is there anyone there that would like to speak? Well, we'll come back around on this side. I'm going to do kind of one side, trying to keep some sort of order here. Yeah, please come up, say and spell your name and your address, please.
I'm Spencer Wood. My address, or WOD. My address is 207 West Ohio, Fortville. I've been kind of a part of this since the beginning. I do work for Jake. I just want to say it does seem very targeted. It has felt very targeted this whole time. He did everything that he needed to do from the beginning. He consulted the right people. He got the permit. It's not his fault if there was a mistake somewhere. He did what he was told to do. He was issued the permit. And then these new ordinances definitely feel very targeted. And there's just a lot of people that, you know, support it. He's not doing anything he shouldn't be doing. And I would like to reiterate the fact that there are other people in Old Bridge that are not in compliance with these. So what's to be done with those if he's not given this variance? So that's it.
All right, thank you so much. All right, anybody else from that row? Okay, the next row. You know the drill. Say and spell your name and your address.
Jessica Warner, WARNER, 502 Walnut Street. I just had a question as far as, are there statistics that say that metal buildings decrease property value, or is that personal opinion?
Okay, and I'm going to take all these questions and then we'll have the petitioner come back up and we'll address those. So,
Okay, I definitely think that should be taken into consideration.
Okay.
If that's just personal opinion or preference.
all right, thank you. All right, following row. I'm kind of, it all blends together at some point there. All right, I think it's the last row seated. Anyone on the back wall? All right, the last row of this section. Okay, the row in front. Hold on. Well, no, not yet. I'm losing sight of my rows back there. Third from the back row. Anyone on that row? Okay, there we go. I have a taker. All right, what's your name and your address, please?
I'm Mike Kelty, Kelty. My address is 521 Bridge Court. I'm on Jake's side of the bridge.
Okay.
I like Jake. I respect him and I admire him for what he's done. I've eaten in many of his establishments many times. He serves great food. I think what he's attempting to build, and he's been approved to build, is just the wrong structure. I don't think it's his fault. I read his application. He indicated he wanted to build a pole barn. And at several of the town council meetings, Adam tried to convince the people that were opposed to it that pole barn, garage doesn't really make a difference. But there's options on his application. You can check, you want a pole barn or do you want a garage? Jake or whoever submitted the application checked that he wanted a pole barn. Not his fault. I believe the dimensions of the pole barn were on the application. It's not Jake's fault that they were overlooked. It's the town of Fortville's fault, in my opinion. I don't think he should be held accountable for a structure that was approved incorrectly or wrongly. But I don't think that structure belongs in that neighborhood. In spite of my respect and admiration for Jake, I just think it's the wrong structure in our neighborhood. And I live in one of those two cul-de-sacs. So I don't get to stare at it. Not that I wouldn't. I mean, that's fine. But I'd like Mrs. Seals to come up and talk, and I don't think she's going to. She's not strong enough. She's 90 years plus. She lives right across from Jake, right across. And as much as she'd like to come up and talk about it, I don't think she's going to be able to, but she's really disappointed that the town of Fortville approved that structure. Again, I don't think it's Jake's fault. I don't think he should be held accountable financially for it, for a decision that was made in error to build a building that should never have been approved. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone in the row in front of Mr. Kelty? All right, the next row up. Yes. Okay, can we take the mic to her, perhaps? Can we do that, Adam?
Sure. It's up to
Oh,
you.
okay, all right. I don't- We will make an exception there.
I'm Darlene Seals and I live at 534 Swan Drive. which is directly across the street from Jake. I wrote a letter and I gave it to Adam. Older Bridge addition is an older addition, but it's all brick and stone and it's all very well kept. It's a family addition. It isn't a business addition at all. We have a lot of people that run in the area. We have people that walk. We have people that walk their dogs through our area. We have children that play in the streets and on the sidewalk with all the games and the toys that they have, which would be a detriment for them. This structure is located right at the beginning of two cul-de-sacs. And there is very minimal parking in this area. And when they say it's a cold storage, I wonder what they are implying is a cold storage. I would like to see this structure either lowered or relocated in a more appropriate area, and that a brick or stone facade would be applied if it continues there. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
In my objection to this variance, it should not.
I'm going to stop you. What's your name and your address? It's okay.
509 Swan Drive.
Thank you.
My objection is it is a commercial building, pole barn, with metal siding to be used for commercial purposes to store materials for business purposes. This is a residential area. And one of these men mentioned the covenants. The original covenant said all the houses had to be 50% masonry. This is a metal building that he's proposing. I have other things here, but they've already been said. In keeping with the high standards of Old Bridge Addition, this is unacceptable to the homeowners in this subdivision. It is an area where current costs of homes range from approximately $200,000 to $350,000. The proposed pole barn will diminish and lower the value of the Old Bridge subdivision real estate. The proposed pole barn is placed in the front area of the property, not in the back. Metal siding would not be allowed on any new home in this subdivision. It would be unsightly in the area of the lovely custom-built homes in this subdivision. Old Bridge subdivision is one of the finest in Fortville. We need to keep the standard high as it now is in Old Bridge.
All right, thank you. All right, the next, see, I'm trying to find out where she's sitting. So, all right, the second row, is there anyone in the second row?
Good evening. My name is Robert Fox, FOX, and I live at 118 Swan Drive in Blossom Trace. I am the president of the HOA in Blossom Trace. We have approximately 40 homeowners. While we are not part of the subdivision at Old Bridge, that is our neighborhood. We hook to that. We're kind of the new subdivision in town, if you will. And the structure that is built, it looks like a fine structure. It's well built. It looks like it's very tall. Looks like a something you would have at an airport hangar. A neighborhood does not belong there in a neighborhood. I don't know what happened on the approval, but you just got to apply some common sense. If you go out there and look at it, you're wondering, why is this in a neighborhood? So I rise and oppose on behalf of our 40 residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right. That's all right.
I'm Gary Shoulders, SHOULDERS. I live at 510 Swan Drive. And on the plan that I looked at, the floor, the type of floor is not identified. Is it a dirt floor? It wasn't on here.
Okay.
And the other question is for you guys. If this does become a commercial storage with people living in it, what can you do to fix that? That's it.
Thank you.
I'll clear the air. There's
Hold on
nothing
just a sec.
commercial in this.
Oh, I'm gonna come back with all these questions. Hang on just a second. I gotta get my writing down. All right, yes, we have one more back here in the back.
Jared Heiner, HINER. I'm at 925 Linda Drive. So I'm here for the gas station and for Mr. Burgess.
Okay.
In my neighborhood, I bought my house 6-7 years ago. I'd been in it though for about the past 14 years. And in our neighborhood, according to, the things that I've seen here tonight, the previous owner built a commercial building in my backyard. It is double the height of my house. It is double the square footage of my house, and it was used for his gutter helmet business for years. The property values in my neighborhood have skyrocketed. My structure has done nothing to the value of their property. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Well, I appreciate you all. Well, oh, I still have one more. I'm sorry. Come on up. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
My name is Zach Burgess, BURGESS. My address is 10836 Indiana 13, Fortville, Indiana. I'm a lifelong Fortville resident. Things change. Things change. This is not the town I grew up in. I came home the other night from work and didn't know how to get home. That being said, I'm a local auctioneer. And the actions of this board could affect the market value here in Fortville. A developer, an investor, a homeowner comes to town, applies for a permit. Permit is granted. Construction begins. Fellow at the gas station. I wouldn't want to invest $500,000, $1.5 million, $3 million, knowing that the board could change their mind and 3 months later maliciously change the code. This just seems totally insane to me. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for keeping your content short and not being repetitive. That helps us move through this a little quicker. The next part of our agenda here is any government officials here would like an opportunity to say anything for or against this project. Okay. I don't see any. I know there's a couple of them here, but it doesn't look like there's anything to be said. All right, I'm going to have the petitioner come back up, and I've kept a list of questions, but if you want to hit some of them that you remember, and then I'll kind of
Yeah,
fill in.
absolutely. I know I got some friends here that have other things to do, so thanks for being here. If you got to go, appreciate it. If you want to stick around, I don't know where the commercial side of that came in. There's no commercial use of that property or of the structure. Like I mentioned, my basement's full, my garage is full. I've got a bus. I'm just tired of seeing it, and it had personal use of that property. I had a couple comments say that there's nothing but brick or stone of 50% in the neighborhood, and I alluded to it in my speech that the most visible structure that's probably passed through the most from Blossom Trace into Old Bridge is a completely vinyl structure that also does not adhere to the height structure. So something that also is not of in accordance with it. So that's kind of where the covenants and the ordinances that I'm seeking to grant is 1 inch too much, or is 10 feet too much? And so where do we draw the line? Is the covenants that have been around since 72 that allowed a completely vinyl structure be put up? Is that okay? But mine isn't. So I think it's 2 in the fist and 1 in the, however that saying goes.
All right, let me go down the list here to see if I've got that I don't have an answer for, but
Here's the thing is that also, I went through all my outlets to get this done. I'm super raw on construction. So that's why I hired the builder. The builder signed the permit. The builder and Adam connected. Adam told me what I needed to do. I did what was requested of me. And so that's kind of where that's where the disconnect in this whole process came from, is that I did all my due diligence, gave stamped and engineered drawings of everything that was given. Like I said, the permit was approved and given, paid for. And then, like I said, out of nowhere, I was given a stop work order. I didn't have a neighbor complain. I didn't have a town official complain. I was simply 10 working hours away from completion before I was given a stop work order. Now the structure, which is obnoxious and intrusive, looks that way because it's set dormant and vacant for 10 months.
Someone, let's see, Ms. Seals questioned, what is cold storage? Was that in an application or something?
I think that's the common term for something that isn't
Just not
HVAC.
conditioned.
Yeah.
It's an unconditioned building is what it
Right.
is. Okay. And I did hear that you are or not, I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm going to have these questions answered. A concrete floor is going to be put in
Yeah.
this,
Yes.
okay? And this is, you are using this strictly for storage. You're not looking to make this into mini apartments
No.
or anything like that, like
No,
was brought up.
no, not at all.
Okay. Does anyone here on the board have any additional follow-up questions?
Have you, because I know a few have mentioned the height concern on it. Have you looked into how much it would cost to lower the height of the building?
Like I said, I've kind of been at a standstill since this happened. I've kind of, like I said, I'm at the mercy of the town at this point, and the fact that, like I said, I'm a cook, I'm not in construction. When I said, what's the biggest legal structure I can build? That's why the lots were combined. That's under the advisement of the town and the building planning director, was simply that I said, guys, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just want to build something that I know that I need. And so when I asked for what the largest I could build, this is what he gave me. And the builder put plans together, submitted them, was approved. And so that's why it is the size that it is. Obviously hindsight's 2020. But what the question that I asked, I was given, I submitted, I was approved. So that's how the story of everything that's going on here today happened, was that I'm dumb. I just played dumb. I didn't know. And so I said, I don't know what I don't know. So tell me what I can do. And so that's how we're in this room today.
So this has literally been at a standstill since August last year.
Yes.
Well, I can honestly say this, I was not aware. This is all new to me. So it's a lot of information to try to sort through and sift through here. I think
But I was done wrong.
as a board, we need a compromise. I mean, I'm in the building business, so I understand how this.
I was 8 hours from concrete being poured.
8 hours from concrete being poured.
And a
So
bunch
right now
of
you
it.
just have the wood structure, wood frame.
Yes. And I think that's what the biggest thing that I've been trying to, address, and Adam and I have talked, and, we've all talked, is that I get compromise as a thing, and the integrity of what I do and what my house is and our neighborhood. I mean, I've wanted to live there since I was a kid. It was great. It's awesome. I loved Old Bridge. I wanted it. And like I said, I'm tied up into the mix of it, saying that I don't know what I need to do. So please advise me. And I was advised by the wrong group of people. And now I'm here in front of you pleading for the fact that my savings account is drained because of this. And I'm looking to have resolution in some capacity, and the fact that I need the structure, and I'm willing to compromise, but, and I think that's what it boils down to.
All right. All right, anybody else have any additional questions? All right, so Adam, on, on this, we have condition, I'm not even sure how to phrase this. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to think that we could come to a compromise. Do we as a board have the right or the availability to have a recess, if you will, or hold so that we could
Get our ducks in a row.
come back with a compromise, or do we need to vote on?
I'll defer to Alex.
Yeah. So good question, Amanda. Can you hear
We
me?
can't hear you, Alex.
Okay. You can't recess and discuss, but a lot of the compromise, I think, would be with Jake and his neighbors and seeing what might be agreeable. And those conversations may have already been had and there might be no utility in it. But what you could do to allow time for those conversations is continue this hearing and then come back next month and pick it up again and see where the interested parties are on any sort of compromise, whether it be on the height, the facade, overhang, all the things you've been talking about.
Can we do that with Adam or you, or is that something that we do independently?
Adam can participate. I'm happy to be there if Adam wants me there as well. We just cannot have, the law prohibits any of the BZA members from participating. And also, if you continue, do not go out and take a look independently. Don't talk to anybody about it. I know it's difficult, especially in a small town where lots of people know lots of people. But really, you guys are the quasi judicial body, and to ensure that Jake's petition gets a fair shake, you really need to only receive your information in the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Alex. I'm just,
I'd be certainly happy to participate in a neighborhood meeting if that's a direction, kind of similar to what we did for that last case.
I think that would be helpful. Hold on just a minute. I think that would be helpful because I do think this case needs a compromise rather than a flat, this is my opinion, approval or tear down. I think there is room for a compromise, but if per law, we as a board aren't allowed to discuss that, then we each would have our own idea of what that compromise was. Whereas if you, as the plan director, could, if it were just me, I'd know what I would do, but I don't know how to
I have some ideas.
do that
if I
with
may.
the board, that I'm not allowed to have interaction outside of this.
If I could jump back in, I think I see and understand where you're struggling with this, and probably other board members as well, Amanda. What I think is being proposed to potentially continue this hearing, allow some time for a neighborhood discussion, and then come back, reconvene in front of the board next month, is not all that different than the prior case where Adam went through things and had recommendations for the board based on the information that he had. It could very well be, and then in that case, like always, you, the board, can adopt the recommendations. You can add, subtract to them. Ultimately, it's just a recommendation from Adam. Similarly, you could hear recommendations from Jake and neighbors if they are able to reach compromise. I mean, the ordinances are still in place and still apply to this structure, all right?
Correct.
But if they come back in a month or whenever the appropriate date is and say, okay, we're all right as neighbors and Jake as owner, with A, B, and C, please grant the variance. You can consider it through that lens of what the property owner and his neighbors have come to, consensus on. And then also Adam may weigh in as planning staff. You can always rely on Adam. And I may even have some legal thoughts for you all. But I think that would be the process. I know it's difficult. You want to go out and take a look at it and whatnot, but you really have to, again, just be careful to keep your participation at the hearing level and not outside of.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Did you have another comment?
I did. My understanding of your procedural rules are that at a certain point, Jake can request a meeting with Adam. And I think the purpose of that meeting would be to explore these potential compromises. Now, whether that's just a meeting between Jake and Adam, or it is informed by input from neighbors. Also, I think we're open to any of those scenarios. But what I foresee happening is that resulting in a competing permit if there is going to be a change in the structure in any meaningful way. So we're going to have a petition for a variance competing at the same time with a application for a new permit seeking approval. So I'm curious about your position on that, if that's allowed. And
Well, a new permit would not occur until the variances were awarded. Is that correct? I mean, Mr. Burt,
Yes,
he
that's
could not
correct.
go back to get a new permit, whatever that looks like, until,
that it was a course of action that Adam had suggested in his correspondence in April that we could seek a variance or we could submit for an application for a new permit for a different type of structure. So-
Yeah, if the other option that they have legally is if they submitted a building permit that met all of these post January 2023 rules, then the town would issue the permit.
and then they would just have to bring the building then into compliance,
That's correct.
which that's up here. He's down here and we need to be somewhere in the middle.
Right. So my recommendation at this point would be, I'd certainly be happy to meet with the applicant, but I don't want the public to think that there's some sort of closed door meeting that would get rubber stamped. So what I think would be in the best interest of everybody is to have a neighborhood meeting here at Town Hall, much like we did with the last case, where we can have an open conversation and try to resolve the issues, obviously without the BZA here.
As they without
And
us,
then,
correct? Okay.
To the extent that there is some sort of agreement, I can present that to you all for your consideration on that, but that would be my take on it.
All right. Well, the permit already has been
Right.
revoked. There,
Yeah, to be clear, the permit was revoked, so there is no
so he- right.
permit.
So he's after variances at this point. That's what this meeting is about. And if we're not prepared as a board to grant every variance across the board, across the list, then I think it needs further looked at with a smaller, like with the community, a community committee and the applicant. So I think I'm looking for a board member to make a motion. Mhm.
I would be willing to make a motion that we continue this issue that's in front of us, this case that's in front of us, to allow the parties that are involved in the process to be able to have a conversation at the town hall and get together in a month and revisit this issue.
All right.
And I think what I'm hearing is that then if me and the neighbors have some sort of solution or resolution, then Adam would give a favorable suggestion.
I can't answer that,
That's
but then
what I'm
it
saying.
comes
I mean, I
back to
think
us.
If we can't get there, then we take the next step.
Right, then it'll come back to us again, and then, yes. Do I have yes, so do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So we're going to table this. There'll be a community meeting, hopefully come to a compromise, and then it'll come back to us hopefully in a month. Thank you all for coming. We do have one more case on the agenda for those that would like to stick around for that.
For a second until everybody clears out.
Yeah, and we'll pause because we have some paperwork too. So. All right, I'm going to recall the meeting to order. If everybody will have a seat, we'll get to our last case and get everybody out of here. All right, the last case on our docket tonight is variance 08-2023 at 322 East Broadway Street. It's Huck's. Adam, can you give us the presentation, please?
Yes. All right.
I don't think so.
Okay, the next case and last case before you tonight involves a number of sign variances for Huck's convenience store. Of course, I think most folks are pretty familiar where it is. It's at 322 East Broadway Street, which is at the southwest corner of Broadway and Walnut Street. The petitioner on the case is the LV Sign Company on behalf of Huck's Convenience Stores. The zoning on the property is commercial community. And of course, the use of the property is a commercial one. It's a gas station. So the request is that Huck's Convenience Stores would like to rebrand their signage at their Fortville store to match their other newer stores. It includes modifying an existing pole sign to increase the area of an LED sign and to allow for price blinking. The wall signage would presumably be installed after the store is remodeled. So here are the, most of this report are just exhibits of what they'd like to do. So here you can see the modifications that they would like to make to that pole sign with the pricing on it. And the unleaded would occasionally flash and change between member and non-member pricing, I believe. Here is a street view image of the sign that's out there. This is if you're coming off of Walnut Street. The sign on the gas canopy would be illuminated. There'd be a few of them. And then you can see what the, generally what the, I believe the remodel would look like when they're ready to do that. Seems to me that they want to get the sign package approved first and start putting in some elements of it, especially the pole sign right now in advance of that. Maybe the canopy changes as well. This is an example of what the signage would look like and presumably the store. Some of these other examples that I'm showing you relate to some of the comments in the report here momentarily. This is another part of the country, a Huck sign that is a ground mounted sign. This particular sign, again, we can always refer back to these exhibits. This is an example that was put together by BP for the gas station that's under construction right now that would meet our ordinance. And again, you can see that the BP logo would have a routed out copy. And then this is another example of basically what the ordinance would prescribe. This particular one is in Carmel. So in terms of the variances that they're requesting, are listed here, the pole sign modification. So the zoning ordinance says that no legal non-conforming sign shall be enlarged or altered in terms of face area, height, or any other aspect that increases its nonconformity. In the prohibited signs section, electronic LED signs and signs that utilize any blinking are prohibited. For the height and size, for a new sign, it says that no freestanding sign may exceed 8 feet in height and 32 square feet in area. And there's also a requirement in our zoning ordinance that pole signs are essentially prohibited because it requires a ground or a monument sign structure. So it says that a sign structure shall be constructed of decorative brick, stone, or other masonry, wood, or metal. And then lastly, the zoning ordinance also goes on to say that internally lit box signage with full acrylic or polycarbonate faces is prohibited along the Broadway corridor. Individually lit individual pan channel letters, individual backlit letters, or a halo effect, or routed out copy is permitted. In terms of remonstrance to these variances, again, all the public hearing notice requirements have been met in terms of a sign posting, newspaper publication, and a mailing to nearby property owners. Mr. Bob Farrell, a nearby property owner, has expressed concern about the location of this sign blocking drivers' visibility when on Walnut, turning left onto Broadway. And I believe his email is in your packet there. In terms of the criteria, it's the same criteria that's based in state law. And the text in yellow are my comments that you're free to adopt if you wish. In terms of general welfare, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. I'd say that probably not, but the sign as proposed could potentially pose a site visibility hazard for motorists. In terms of adjacent property, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Again, probably not an issue. Residential neighborhood would not be impacted. And then lastly, practical difficulty, that the strict application of the terms of this chapter will result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. I say that that has not necessarily been met. A sign company could design the signage based on the town standards and the ordinance. And those were the examples, especially from BP, that I was showing you in this report. So with that, my recommendation would be somewhat of a compromise, would be to allow the wall signage and the canopy signs as proposed. However, the pole sign, if modified, could not increase the height of the sign, cause blinking, or a larger LED display than what they have there today. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them. And I believe a representative from the sign company is here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. So the petitioner, will you come up and say how you represent the case and say and spell your name, please?
My name is Susie Basham. I'm with Alvey Sign Company. The address is 13100 Highway 57 North in Evansville, Indiana. And actually, when I seen the monument sign, that's the first that I realized that a monument sign was even an option here.
Oh, okay.
So Huck's is rebranding, and not just their newer stores, they're rebranding all of their stores. And they're wanting to want everything to be conformed when you go down the highway and you see that, I don't know what you call that shape, but whatever that shape is, and you know, you're approaching Huck's. And so that's what they're trying to maintain. I would like to show you, like I said, I didn't know, we've got the building. There's a couple of them where we've done in other places, and I'm assuming you're doing completely away with pole sign altogether. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, no new pole signs, and therefore no modifications to the existing signs that would increase the nonconformity.
Okay.
So to be
Will they
clear,
change it?
yeah. Right.
We put. So. Says unleaded, that does not blink. Above the unleaded is a very small, say, member, non-member. And that's where the pricing will change for a member as to a non-member. A lot of gas stations are doing that now. You get like 10% or 10 cents off a gallon, or you get free Coke if you buy, whatever their promotional thing is at that time. That's the member, non-member. I did want to show you because we've looked at trying to not even bring this to variance. And after our customers seen what it was going to look like with what we would have to do, the electronic billboard is no larger than it is now, as they are prohibited. No member signs, since that enlarges it to nonconformity. The top sign is no higher than the current. That still isn't, the height, everything's the same. New box signs with acrylic faces are prohibited. It is polycarbonate, but I guess that isn't. And the top sign has aluminum face with routed out copy or all channel letters on the back. When we took this to our designers to do, this is at night when you're going down. This is what the proposed would look like. Bringing it into conformity. We have this here. I was just holding it back there. Sorry. This is what it would look like if we brought it into conformity. This is what they're asking for. Well, it clearly can be said, be read better, but what they're most concerned with is they want the white in the back lit up and the Huck so that you can read it better, as opposed to black in the back and the white lettering in the front. And that's just because of the way it's the push through letters to go. So what they're trying to do, and if you look at these several pictures there, but also have some of other locations that they did. This one's in Martin, Tennessee. They brought that one through this. This one's in Fairfield, Illinois. So depending on what they have, some stores have Cluck's chicken, some stores have Godfathers, some have both, some have neither. It's just whatever that store has. Now, I do feel like if you feel like this is the site vision, perhaps that we would be have to make it taller to bring from the ground to the bottom of the sign to make visibility more. I'm not sure. I was looking at it as we were coming in, but there's a lot of construction. So it was kind of hard to really determine what was there, if that would actually be a problem. Because I did think about that when it was lower. And so what I would say is, you have to tell me what it would need to be from the bottom up. And if they did a monument sign, from what, like I said, the construction was there and it was a little overwhelming when we were coming into town looking. But it would a monument sign setting there where that construction, my concern would be that it would be hit. But maybe when all the barrels and barricades and everything's gone, it might look a little bit different.
Okay. All right, well, we might call you back up for some additional questions. Does the board have any questions for her right now?
I think we showed you what they proposed. This is Fortville's proposed.
Proposed. Okay.
You put that up. Do you have that out? Okay.
So you made a comment that you weren't aware that a monument sign might have been a possibility. Is it,
Fit. There again, what kind of height restrictions and with restrictions, that kind of stuff to be put on there in order for them to get everything.
so I'm not right. I'm not sure you'll be able to answer my question. Can you get the same amount of information on a monument sign that you're trying to achieve on the one that's up for variance? Okay.
I think a monument sign would be harder for people coming out of Walnut Street to see, because it's gonna be down on the ground blocking, unless they move it back.
Well, and that was my next thing is, again, I'm not sure that some of these questions I have, she'll be able to answer. And I'm not even sure, Adam, that we know that is there even room on the property if we, exactly. I guess I'm exploring all options, not just this one that's presented. If we should explore maybe a monument sign, if it would indeed fit, because if we did that, then she does not need a variance for the sign, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if they were to remove the pole sign and start from scratch and do something that meets the ordinance, then there'd be no issue. So again, just to be clear, the problem with the pole sign is that they're technically making it a little bit higher. It's negligible, but the LED pricing, which is a prohibited element now, is becoming bigger. And then there is a blinking component, even though it's not rapid,
Right.
it still does, it blinks. So. I'm sorry. Yeah, instead of LED, what the ordinance would require would be something like this. Right. The ordinance prohibits LED pricing.
I do have a question that probably to Adam, as far as like visibility turning off of Walnut. For the road diet, that existing sidewalk that's currently there is no longer going to be there. That's going to be pretty much Huck's property. And then the new sidewalk will go on the existing road bed. So it'll be even further, the actual stop sign will be further.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I was thinking about that too, is that can you see where my cursor is? The sidewalk will be bumped. The new sidewalk that they're putting is going to be bumped out a bit, about right here. So there would be more visual space around it. But to your point, if they were willing to do, a monument sign, something similar to this, we would have to take a look at to see what impact that would have on visibility as well. So that's why, in terms of the recommendation is, first, if you were to be inclined to approve this, it'd say that all the wall signage and canopy signs as proposed are fine. Because they are technically box signs. And they do have the polycarbonate face to it, although it's not a true, it has a different shape, unique shape.
Right.
What the ordinance is prohibiting is actually something like the Godfather's sign that they're showing. But the second part of it is, if the pole sign, if it's modified, that they could still modify it if they wanted to go that route. They just couldn't increase the height of it. They couldn't cause that blinking, or they couldn't do a larger LED display. So if you adopted that, that would be the rules that they would follow. Otherwise, if they said, let's just start from scratch on the pole sign, follow your ordinance and be done with it. That's the other option.
This is what it would look like if we brought it into ordinance. this is what they're asking for. In the version.
Hmm.
Can I see those again?
Sure.
What proposal
This is the proposal.
Okay.
That is bringing it into compliance.
One in the center is not an option.
No, that's just, they're all the same.
You just, this is at night, this is during the day.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
There you go. All right, any other questions before I move through the agenda here?
So right now, the sign that's sitting there, they can modify, they cannot modify that one. Or they can.
Under the ordinance, they can't modify it in a way that would increase its
Size.
nonconformity with the code.
Sure.
So they couldn't, since an LED sign is prohibited, they couldn't put a bigger one.
Okay.
Or they couldn't make they couldn't make it blink. The
one that's there now is LED?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So if they. No, the pricing will not be lit up at night at all. Is that right? If people drive down, if they're putting the changeable letters in there, they won't be able to see the pricing?
Well, I would defer to you all on that, on what the solution is for night. I don't know. It can't be a digital reader board under the ordinance.
So that also would have to come back through a variance.
It would have to be like that.
Is it LED now? I don't know. Yeah, it's
Correct.
LED.
Yeah.
They do.
Oh,
Yeah, we had a variance. Okay. All right. Can I move on? Is everybody done up here?
Yep.
Okay. All right. If you'll have a seat, and we might call you back if we have additional questions. Time in the agenda now for public response for or against. If anybody here would like to say something, just say your name, spell your last name and your address. Okay. I don't see anybody coming forward. I have time now for government officials. Anybody here want to say anything for or against? All right, we have a taker, yay.
Becky Davis. I am not against the sign. I do think it needs to be moved back so that it won't interfere with the vision of people coming off of Walnut, depending on how far that sidewalk is going to be bumped out. And I also don't think it should be any bigger than what it is now.
All right, thank you. No, she's town council. Thanks. All right, do we have anybody else that has anything to say? All right, well, it's now time for us to, we don't have any questions back to the petitioner. So I guess I'm looking for someone to make a motion, and this would be for, against, or with conditions. For these variances, and the variances are the pole height, the larger LED than what is there, and a flashing component. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Okay, the three things that we're looking at for the variance are increased in pole height,
Mhm.
larger LEDs than already existing,
Mhm.
and a flashing component.
And a polycarbonate box sign, if it's construed that way. If it's considered to be a box.
So should we do this all in one or each one of these individually?
It's up to you.
Since you all are making the motion, I'll let you guys decide if you want to bundle this or if we want to do it separately.
Quick question for Adam. How wide is the new sidewalk on that side?
I think it's 6 feet.
6 feet? So it's 6 feet. Is it 6 feet beyond the current sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay, so the drivers are going to have that much more clearance away from that sign to be able to look left.
So for Becky's concern, it would appear that it's set back because the sidewalk now is in essence further into the street.
Yes. Yeah, the bottom line is it should be with the when the road project on Broadway is done, it should be easier to see. But I don't know if there might still be an obstruction with the current sign or a modified one.
Can you go back to the screen that had your recommendation criteria on it? I'd like to look at that one last time. Yeah, that. Go, let's see, right, so I'm looking for a board member to make a motion for all or part, approve, deny, and or with conditions.
I'll go ahead and move to approve it with the staff recommendation provided to allow the signage and canopy signs as proposed. Pole sign if modified cannot increase the height of the sign. Cause blanking. I don't know about the larger LED display though, because they want to have the diesel listed as well. So I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily want to put that on there.
So if you were inclined, you could strike the last.
I'd
the-
strike
the
the last
text after
condition.
the comma.
Yeah,
if
I'd
that's the
strike the
direction
last
you wanna go.
condition then.
Okay. So your motion is to allow wall signage canopy sign as proposed, as well as a larger LED display, but not allowing a modified pole sign or increase the height or cause blinking.
Right.
Okay.
And he was recommending to strike the larger LED display, that it could be larger, correct?
Well, they can't make the sign any larger.
Well, the way that it's displayed, because this is adding on the diesel price. And that's what they're wanting to do. So if they don't do that, if they don't add the diesel price, that'd make it the same size as it presently is. From what I'm seeing it.
Let's get a second on that and then we'll go to discussion. Do I have a second on his motion?
Well, I don't understand the LED, the way Adam was saying is if
You could
they
strike it.
modify the sign is they're gonna add that, they're gonna enlarge it, correct?
Yeah, so LED signage on new signs are prohibited in the town. So therefore, if you have an existing reader board, which they have, you can keep that. It's grandfathered as long as you don't make it any bigger. But if you wanted to allow for more LED as part of the variance, and you could allow that if you want to.
As long as it doesn't make the sign bigger.
You could allow it to be bigger. That,
Can you show the two signs again next to one another? Because
yeah,
the way it looks, it doesn't look like it actually makes the sign bigger, but it just displays more LED.
right.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, what's the difference in the height of those two right there? I mean, it looks minuscule. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm good with that.
Can we make a condition too on that if that once I don't know when you guys are planning on doing this, once the road's done and they're like that. No, what I wanted, if the road, if there's a problem with people coming out of Walnut Street, they're turning left. If they could see, would you be willing to move it back if there's room?
Could we do a condition that when, well, if they're not moving this sign?
Okay. Sign is tall to do that. You just make the, from the ground to the bottom of Godfather's, raise that. However many inches you tell us to do it, but they're gonna make it a little height taller. That's what we've done in the places they've done all this.
I understand what Dan's saying. If we could do some sort of condition, but we don't really know what our feet visibility is going to be once the road project is complete. And they're not intending on moving the existing sign.
Right. That's the key. That's the
That-
key part is they're not intending on
Moving
it.
And
We could
it's-
figure out the appropriate site distances and the site distance triangle, site visibility triangle there. That could all be calculated based on the plans. But the fact of the matter is they're not looking to move.
the existing sign, right?
Unless,
Exactly, unless we put a condition on that and right now, it's a visibility problem, the way it stands right now, correct?
well, it depends who you ask.
Oh.
I mean, since I would like to go on the record saying I am a fan of the Godfather's Pizza.
Very much so.
I would say that it just in passing by, it's not. It could be better without it there. Let's put it that way. But at the same time, I haven't experienced it to be a huge issue the way it is, but maybe I'm not paying enough attention when I'm driving. I don't know.
Right. I have a government official that has a comment on that. And maybe she has more information on this and the road stuff going on.
Yeah.
So technically, it's the same height. Okay. It was 206, this is 265.5 inches. And so is this, 265.5.
You look at the dimensions on each one. Add up the dimensions on each.
I don't need to, because it shows it right here. Okay, anyway. It's also, this is gonna be 30 inches lower than this. This is 70.5. And this here is 43 5/8, so it's about 30 inches lower.
That's gonna be
But it's
blocking.
also gonna be more narrow. So this is only, right here is 84, where this over here is 96.5.
So not only did we gain some visibility, it's on a slimmer sign, but now we're also, because of the road being extended out and sidewalks extended out, we gain feet probably there instead of inches. Unfortunately, we just don't know what that number is. And because I don't drive Walnut Street very, very seldom, I've never noticed it being a problem, but I don't know.
I don't find the sign being obtrusive at all, so. That's my opinion, and I think that sign looks great. And I think the new building looks great.
The new building's gonna
We
look
need
good.
that.
Yeah, it'll be a nice addition and facelift to Fortville. I agree. Okay, so we're going to go back to our motion, which is lit and left hanging. Do you want to amend it in any way, or do you want to leave it as stated? Because I think the issue was the larger LED display.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the larger LED display, so we
You're-
can leave that off there, without that restriction on there. So no we can let them have a larger LED display as presented by the petitioner.
Okay? I think then the motion was to allow the wall signage, the canopy sign is proposed. But cannot modify the pole height or, let's see, or cause any blinking. But can modify the larger LED display.
Unless they can get it on there.
Unless they can get it, but it cannot be blinking. Yeah. Right. So do I have a second on that?
The height is.
Oh.
The height is the same size as that one.
Correct.
Height that's is.
All right, do I have a second?
So can you go through your game one more time?
I move to approve to allow the wall signage and canopy signs as proposed. The pole sign, if modified, could not increase the height of the sign, cause blinking, and that was it. Allowing for the larger LED display for the diesel price.
And keeping the sign as the same size.
Yeah.
Height.
Height. And this gets narrow.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, well, that brings us to the end of a very long Board of Zoning meeting. Thank you all for attending. Do I have a motion to adjourn with time?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Alec.
Ooh.